Hey guys, thanks for being on the show.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the invitation.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. So you guys are both from Brazil and now you moved to Canada. So actually now you live in Canada. But let's start maybe from the beginning, like with you, Arnaldo, because the story actually starts with you. Because you left Brazil back in 2001 to move to the US. And my question is, like anybody else, ask, why did you decide to leave Brazil? Why did you decide to leave Brazil and move to the US?
Oh, as we have talked about that actually earlier, but this is my second immigration. Let's say I immigrated to the US when I was 23. This was in 2001, and I lived in the US until 2007, early 2007. And the reason is that I don't know. I think I just decided to take a shot at an adventure. I think because I came from a very poor background, so I didn't have a lot of opportunities. So I didn't even speak English when I went to the US. And due to the fact that I have some relatives in the United States, and I was really stuck in a dead-end job in Brazil. I didn't have money to go to college. I think I had to leave my course. I abandoned the course like twice because I didn't have money to finish my studies. So I was really stuck. And I think this is a situation that is very common with a lot of people who wanted to immigrate. Right? And I was really stuck. So I didn't know what to do. And one of my relatives who have been in the United States since, 1960 something, one of my aunts there, she offered me the opportunity. She wrote a letter. If I wanted to go, I could stay with her for a while, etc., etc. So I decided to just abandon everything that it wasn't much to begin with. So I just left everything behind. And by everything, I mean almost nothing. And I took a chance. And I think this is going to be your next question now about the English issue. Because I couldn't even...
exactly.
I couldn't count to 10 when I got there.
Oh, wow. No. So that's what kind of like I want to know, because you moved to the US, moved to another country without even speaking the language.
Yes.
And I can speak as my perspective, like I moved to another country, like the most challenging part for me at least was to trying to find a job and pay the bills. If you don't speak the language, sometimes it's harder even to find a job and pay the bills. What was your experience when you
my
moved to the US with no English?
I had no idea of the challenges that I was going to face. Probably if I did, I wouldn't have done it, I think. But as soon as you put this whole thing in motion, I mean, I didn't want to go back, So, but it was pretty difficult. My problems started actually upon landing, because my interview with the immigration officer had to be in Spanish, which I also didn't speak. I don't speak Spanish. I can understand a bit and can communicate a bit, but because of the similarity with Portuguese, I was able to communicate a bit. It's one of those moments like, oh, shit, yeah. So, and my idea was not really to stay that long, but just to stay a bit, to try to find a job, etc., etc. But it was virtually, I'm not going to say impossible, but when you try to work in the United States, where English is the mother tongue, it is extremely difficult to get around. It doesn't sound that bad. I think normally people, it didn't sound bad to me. I mean, I knew about that before going to the US. That's what, when you tell people nowadays that you need to study, etc., etc. I know. No, you don't. You don't. I didn't. I thought I did, but I didn't. So I couldn't do like basic things. But answering the phone was a nightmare. I couldn't even pick up the phone because I didn't understand what people said. And a friend of mine helped me to get a job at a restaurant, at a pizza restaurant. And I started working there as a delivery driver. So, and I didn't know how to drive in the United States. So I had to take the driving test. Here in Canada, we normally go to the registry and you schedule the test. In the US, it's a pretty similar procedure. So I had to do my driving test and without speaking English. And I had to go into the registry there alone at the DMV without speaking English with some phrases written on a piece of paper. Because my friend couldn't go with me. He could go up to the door. It was very stressful. I got so stressed that day that I think I had a headache for a couple of days after that, because they were even simple questions. So you go to the registry, they start asking questions: where do you live, address, etc. And I couldn't answer. I just handed a piece of paper, and I managed to pass the written test. Or here in Canada they call the knowledge test in Spanish, although I don't.
You did it in Spanish?
My Spanish, it was the only language or Spanish or English. And I passed somehow. And after that, I had to do the driving test. I had to take the driving test. And I remember that was, I think, the first word that I learned in English. Because I just said that, you know how examiners are. In Canada, they are actually quite nice. But in the US, they are traditionally rude. So this guy sat next to me. And the first thing he said was, I just told him, sir, no English. And he was very happy to hear that. Actually, you could see by his grim face. Yeah, all right, straight. And I was like, what? Straight. What? And he just pointed. Straight. Oh, okay, straight. So that was the first, I think the first word that I remember learning.
You will never forget this word.
Yeah, I mean, and he was so pissed that I think he cut the test in short, because we just drove for like 5 minutes. And at the first stop sign, I just stopped, did a full stop, left, using his hand, left. Okay. I was like, okay was the first word. And I was able to get my driver's license, and I started working in a restaurant. But it was extremely stressful. I mean, working in a restaurant is normally stressful, but without speaking the language, they could be speaking, I don't know, like Chinese for all I care. They didn't understand anything. And the situation started to become more stressful by the day. It was a dreadful thing to just stop the car in front of the restaurant, and I couldn't say anything. And I started to communicate a bit with a couple of people there by using, translation. It's like very basic words. And one of the guys who worked there, he was from, I do not remember exactly if he was from Latvia. It was one of those former Soviet republics. He was from a very small country there. And his English was great. I could tell. I mean, the communication was answering the phone and talked to people. And we talked a bit. And I asked him I managed to ask with my awesome level 0 English how long he had been in the US at that time. And he had been there for less than a year. And we talked about if he studied English or not. And he said that he had. That struck me. Like, how did you, learn to speak like that fast, fluently? And he told me about this program at a local college. And I decided to, check it out. It turns out that for those of you who are listening here, the program that I eventually registered to, and I was able to change my visa from a tourist to a F1 international student, is very similar to the Pathway program here in Canada. It was basically an English course for people who are going to go to college. And I started studying basically 22 hours a week, between 18 and 22 hours a week, depending on the week. So it was a full-time study. And I was working in the afternoon and at night. And I had a very difficult learning curve initially. It was very flat. It took like 2-3 months to actually, and eventually it snowballed from there. And after 6 months of that, studying 4 hours a day, and I started practicing from reading magazines, from reading books, watching series with subtitles, listening to the radio in English. And for those of you young listeners, if you guys are not aware, the smartphones were invented in 2007. So there were no smartphones, there were no apps, there were no iPads, like nothing of that sort back in 2001 and 2002. So everything that I had to learn, I had to go to Hollywood Video or to what was the name of the other one?
Like Blockbuster?
Blockbuster, yeah.
Blockbuster.
I had to go to Blockbuster, so I would get like DVDs, 3-4 DVDs on the weekend, so I could watch with the subtitles, so I could get a bit of vocabulary, like paper dictionaries, etc., etc. And after I think I don't know, 8 months, 9 months of that. Yeah. And then things just start flowing. And I never stopped practicing. That
Okay.
was,
So it took roughly like 8 months before you were able to have a conversation.
well, I was having conversation from very early on. But I was working basically. And
You were trying to.
well, I was trying to,
conversations.
right? Because working as a delivery driver, people think it's easy, but it's not. It's not like people do it nowadays with, Skip the Dishes or Uber, that you just
Everything's
drop
on
this
the app,
stuff in
yeah.
front of the people. We have GPS. No. I had to actually go to the restaurant I was working there, so I had to read the stuff and get the address right on a piece of paper, get a flashlight. There were no GPSs, and I had to talk to people, tell them how much it was. I didn't know numbers, so I had a dictionary in the car, so I had to check how to say this number. And they wouldn't understand. Sometimes I had to show them the paper. Oh, okay. And basically counting, go back there and talk to the manager. And basically that was my first couple of years in the US.
Using maps, paper maps.
Paper maps, yeah, of course. Paper maps and flashlights. And I don't know, I was stopped by the police a bunch of times.
Okay. I'd like to ask you, was it easier for you to understand English or to speaking? Was it easier for you to hear the conversation? Was able to understand the conversation first, or actually be able to talk to a person first? What was the things that came first? What was most the challenging thing?
The first thing that we develop, and this is a general thing for most people, especially now that it's easier for us to notice that as we deal with students on a daily basis, listening comes first, by far. Listening is the first, but you started to understand. So initially, on the first 3-4 months, you don't understand anything. They are talking like nothing, and you can't, of course, nothing. And as you start to notice patterns, and you try to mimic phrases, you know what they're saying. Oh, that's very good. Oh, great. Okay, so great. And then you start to repeat. And if they don't understand, you change the intonation. And speaking normally comes later. So listening, yes, that was the first thing that I developed.
Okay, because for me, I think listening came second, just because of the accent. I was able to, I did like you, watching TV shows and movies with subtitles. And usually TV shows and movies are usually American, with American accent. I remember being able to understand a movie or a TV show, and then I would go out in the real world, and I was in New Zealand, so people were speaking differently with a different accent. I remember not be able to understand a thing. What's going on? I could understand English in my room, and I get out in the real world and I can't understand a thing.
Yeah.
And I was able to communicate first, then actually understanding what the people were saying.
Yeah, I think the reason behind that might be you probably studied a bit of English before you start to attempt to speak. I didn't. My first contact with English was through listening. Right?
Okay.
Was through listening. So I started to listen to the radio, to my cousin. I have cousins in the US. They only speak English, so we would go out and like nothing. And little by little, I started to pick up words. I didn't even know how the words were written. I didn't know the spelling. And as he would say something, I would try to copy. I would say something. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow, and little by little, I started picking up. So my reading comprehension came later.
Yeah, it was the opposite.
Yeah,
for me.
but I mean, but the thing with the United States, right? We will talk about that in more detail soon. But in Canada, people are much more forgiven, let's say, with the accent issue. Right? The fact that we are having this conversation here, it is proof of that. But in the US, people are much less forgiven regarding the accent. Right? So I had some very weird situations. I was pulled over by the police on my second day there, delivering pizzas. I didn't understand a word of what the guys say. But in the US was something like that. If you don't speak the standard American English, people, they don't understand you. Others, they will. I had the impression that they will pretend that they don't understand you to make you feel more uncomfortable. This happened to me a bunch of times. For example, sometimes, yes, intonation plays a great role in communication. For example, a simple word like a copy. Right? I need a copy of this key. Right? A situation that was very uncomfortable when I had to go to a Home Depot. Right? I had to make a copy of a key. I mean, I didn't know a lot of the word or how to say, can I have a copy, please? But, I had the key in my hand and, key maker. Okay, I read the dictionary, key maker. Okay, so I went to the key maker. There were people there and you tell the people that, I need a copy. The intonation is wrong, right? They stress. Copy. I was holding the key. I was showing the key to the key maker and I need a copy. I don't understand. Copy. What is copy? And he called another person. They started looking at each other kind of with this more copy. Oh, a copy. Oh, you need a copy. Yes, I need a copy. They will do that. It's not something that normally in Canada happens. It had never happened to us, actually.
Yeah, because here English as a second language is almost the language of the country.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the point.
Yeah, and people are much more forgiving
and open.
I mean, they are more open. They are more. They at least they try to understand you. Right, and it is in the US, so I had to adapt. So I had to practice my pronunciation a lot because if you don't speak English like in the way that I'm speaking now, forcing them, they don't understand you or they pretend that they don't understand you. They do that quite a lot.
Okay.
So it was very, very difficult this particular part, and I made a couple of friends. One of them, he's still my friend to this day. He's from India, but his English is flawless. He is an American citizen, so he taught me a lot of intonation. So I used to practice with him. So he always say like this. I couldn't tell the difference between numbers like 18, 80, 85. I couldn't say it. For me, they sounded all the same. I think a lot of students have that problem. And I understand that 80, 18, 80, 18. And for them, but it sounds the same. I know. I remember. It does. So it takes, a few months, a few years until you start to actually tune your ear to the nuances of the pronunciation. So this was it was like a 6 years English boot camp, I think, something like that.
Yeah, sometimes even like a uncomfortable situation makes you understand the pronunciation real quickly, so you don't make the mistake again. Like, I don't know. There's so many examples in the English language that a word saying like a slightly different can mean something completely different and completely inappropriate.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
that's true.
Lots of them.
So I've been through so many of those mistakes, so many of those like uncomfortable situations. Like, no, that's not what I mean. I don't even realizing that you're making the mistake. You don't even know the word you're saying because that's in your head sounds exactly the same. Like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
But
it sounds completely different, completely inappropriate.
It takes time until we adjust our listening to and the speaking as well, the intonation part. I think this is a bigger problem for people who started learning English when they were older.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the muscles that we need for certain sounds, they were never activated. So especially older people, when they started learning at 40, when they are 40, 50, 60 years old, it happens. The best they can do sometimes is try to emulate the sounds, but sometimes it's just, it doesn't happen. But you can emulate well enough. That's at least to be understood.
Yeah, because actually our apparel for speaking, our equipment for speaking, and when we think about children and teenagers, actually in children and teenagers, the muscles and even the bone tissue, they are still more flexible. So for children and for teenagers, young teenagers, it's much easier for them to get used to producing some sounds. So the older you are when you start studying a language, the harder it is for you to imitate some specific sounds. Yeah, because it's like you're not able to adapt your equipment anymore. Yeah, so you usually struggle harder in order to produce some specific sounds because it's not flexible anymore. The tissue is already settled, let's say. Yeah,
it can improve. I mean, for example, a sound that for Brazilians is very difficult because we don't have that sound in Portuguese phonetics, let's say. The TH. There are two sounds for the TH. The one from thank you, the th. Th. This is extremely extremely difficult for people to learn.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, let's say it's impossible. There are some sounds that sometimes we don't have the skills, we don't have the muscles, we don't have sometimes the patience, because it would take sometimes for a person that has a lot of difficulty to, I don't know, 1 year, 2 years to improve that. And it's just not worth it. It depends on the type of job or the work that you do. As long as you can be understood, that's not a big issue. My aunt, for example, Aline knows about that. She came from a very poor background as well. So they were in Europe during World War II, before that actually. So the family moved from the Ukraine in the 1930s to Germany to Brazil. And so access to education set was, not really a thing. So, but she can communicate in 6 languages. She can communicate. She can speak Polish, German, Russian, Ukrainian, Romanian. She can speak a bit English. I think even a Portuguese and Spanish. So with accent. So English for her was always she never studied. She learned it by listening to people and talking. So she cannot say the th. She couldn't. Right. So she, instead of 30, she would say 30.
I can totally relate with that.
Correct, but the intonation is right.
Yeah, the intonation is right.
This is the thing. The pronunciation is not exactly correct. Like 35, or I need 35. That's perfectly understandable. So because,
especially if you know the situation.
Maybe because it will take her, I don't know, 1, 2, 3 years to people, they understand now, I know, and then they move on to other things. It's because speaking English perfectly was not really. I know her background, so it was not even like on her top 10 priority list. Yeah, they had a very difficult upbringing in Europe. And this is something that happens in Canada as well. This is a thing. A lot of people here, they don't. Yeah, okay. That's part of our conversation as well.
Okay. So you learning the language, you talk like about 8 months before you were able to actually wrap around your head, like start like speaking a little bit of English, more like proper, having more like a proper conversation. Did that change the way that you were able to work, finding a job, or living your life, just because you have a better level of English?
Oh, definitely, yeah. It is kind of you are almost let out of like this mental prison, because the sensation that I had was, I think, in a way, a type of a mental claustrophobia, because we develop high levels of anxiety, right? What nowadays people say anxiety, it was not even a thing back then. So you start to get agitated when you have to answer the phone, or have to go into a supermarket, or when you have to estimate. Nowadays, what people do to overcome that, instead of facing the issue, let's go there and try to communicate. Let's see if they understand me. If they don't, just put your face up there. And if they don't understand it, they don't. So I had to get used to being uncomfortable all the time. Nowadays, people, they don't really do that much. They rely too much on apps, on cell phones. So they just try to buy things online, or they just translate. They use the cell phone, which is cool, but the machine is doing all the work. And if you remove the cell phone from their hands, they can't really communicate. Right? But it improved everything. I mean, I think I got much more confident, because it was something that I didn't think that I could learn.
Yeah, actually, it's related to life quality. Yeah,
because you gain access to knowledge, you gain access to books, magazines, talking to people, like answering the phones, calling people sometimes to ask for things, and things just took off from there.
Yeah, I remember, I think one of the best moments in my immigration journey, I think, was the time when I switched my Bluetooth headset on. Like, I remember, like, I got to the point where I prefer talking to people, so I started using this Bluetooth headset, because I rather talk to people, call somebody, than actually texting. And before that, I remember I wasn't even, as you mentioned, I was scared to answer the phone. I was hung up, send it to the voicemail, so I could listening multiple times, or going to my roommates, like I say, like, can you translate this for me, or can you explain this for me, because I can't understand what they were saying. So going from that, it was like a bit terrifying to answer the phone because I felt like a stupid, because everything I would say, it was like, oh, sorry, can you repeat? Sorry, what? Sorry. It's just sorry all the time.
Stupid, yeah.
So going to that, yeah, exactly, absolutely, completely stupid. So going from that point to prefer talking than messaging, that was for me was one of the wow moment in my immigration journey.
No, it was a very interesting experience. But I mean, it took me a few years to process the whole thing, right? From beginning to end, even after this United States immigration failed plan ended, it took me years to process the whole thing, because I went through all the processes of from the cultural shock to the reverse cultural shock to actually trying to get uncomfortable with the language and going to the learning process of English and all that. And it was just slightly overwhelming. It took me a few years to get my head around it.
You mentioned culture shock. What was part of the culture shock? Was the part of the US that was shocking in a way for you?
Essentially everything.
Is it so different from Brazil?
It's completely different. The culture is different. The habits are different. The food is different. The language obviously is different. And I think that what was shocking to me, and that is the reason that I think I ended up studying philosophy after a few years. I finally had the conditions to go to college. I was already 35. I started to try to understand the whole thing. Because it's not only language-wise, culture-wise, how I had conceptions about this place that I had never been to, and how a lot of my personality was conditioned to my culture. And something that happened much later on, for those of you who like soccer, I remember this one moment that of course, I didn't realize it then. I realized later that Brazil was going to play in 2002. Brazil played Germany for the final of the World Cup, and Brazil won. So a bunch of friends there, they just rented this place downtown Chicago, and we went there. We watched the game. Brazil won. I mean, in Brazil, soccer is religion. Like people talk about it, about England, about the British, about the Argentinians, about how Canadians like hockey. Oh no, it's not even close. It's not even like the United States love for baseball and American football. You can get that and multiply by 1,000. It's impossible to explain for someone who doesn't come from that. It's part of the culture. It's part of the idioms, the idiomatic expressions, the way that people communicate. Is part of the fabric of society. So it's really important. So, in Brazil, just won the World Cup. And we went out, we celebrated, etc. And when we got out, a lot of people were walking on the streets, right? And remember this one guy, he was walking his dog. And we were all happy with the Brazilian, the Brazilian national team jersey on. And he asked, what happened? Well, Brazil just won the World Cup. Well, nice. Which sport? And we're like, soccer. Oh, great. Good for you. And he kept on walking. And the first thing that I was old. I was 25 already, I think. And the first thing that comes to mind is, wow, they're so, I think, not stupid, but how can they not know about that? It was, and as the years went by, I started to understand how a lot of my habits, my culture, people, to this day, they get here, like in Canada or the US, and they get shocked. How come they don't eat this? How come they don't do that? How come that? And we get into this thing. I went to the same phase, and eventually I think I came to realize that there is no better or worse. There is no right or wrong in that regard. But a lot has to do with the context, with the culture that you are brought up. And I think for people who immigrate when they are younger, when they are, teenagers. I think they have an easier time than adults, but not that much. So people who immigrate as children, they don't even go through that process because their personality is not yet formed.
Yeah, and they have very few memories.
Yeah, and their memories, how memories are.
They're tricky.
Yeah, we have episodic memories. We remember only like certain things, the gist of it. We don't remember the whole thing as a movie, although we think we do.
In certain ways.
Yeah. We just remember like the main lessons of it, and that this was shocking, like to adapt to the whole thing. So, and I at one point, I think a couple years after that, maybe, I realized a couple of things. Oh, and I started kind of trying to insert myself more into the American culture and the American way of life. So eating what they eat, read what they read, watch what they watch. So I really got into that a bit because it is a way. It is a survival mechanism. It makes your life, easier, and is also a way to make my mind, I think, quiet down a bit because it is a hell of a thing to go through. Because you are like in a totally different culture. The values are different. The way that people communicate, the body language, everything is different. Right? And this was something that I had to go through. But the funny part with that is that Brazilians, they don't. I think this is true for you probably. So because I was not Brazilian, let's say, anymore, because I ended up. After you start to notice how a lot of what we like, it's actually dictated from the media to the news to the way that people talk to the the companies to etc. to
Even
marketing,
family,
even family, especially family, and so I let go a lot of that shocks and I start adapting new things. It's not that I abandoned who I was, but in a way I did. But this old me had to die in a way for the new one to arise. So. And that happens. So, and the funny thing is, and then Brazilians, they don't really like that much because they say that you got Americanized, those jokes that people make. Oh, now you are in Americanized. You don't do this anymore. You don't like that anymore. You don't eat this anymore. And for Americans, they never accept you, period. Right? If you are not Johnson American, it doesn't matter how good your English is. They never accept you. So you are not American, let's say, where you were not adapted in the United States, and you are not Brazilian, so you kind of get stuck in this limbo, which is actually for me, it was very, I think, slightly shocking in the beginning, but I ended up actually enjoying that because it kind of gives you freedom to redefine lots of things.
Yeah, I heard that like from multiple guests, the same thing. Like you can in this limbo, you're not either culture, not part of either culture. You're not like you kind of like different from the person you were back in your country. You're not fully integrated in the new one, so it's still like you mentioned, like the same in the limbo, which is our land.
This is one of the things that sometimes I tell people who are aspiring to be immigrants that this metamorphosis, if I could say that, this transformation has to happen. I don't think it is optional. I don't think you get to choose. I'm not going to go. People, they try to do that through living in neighborhoods where they can speak their languages, or going to places in the US where they can speak their languages, or eating their food, watching now this is much easier to do it, watching TV or watching movies in their languages. So, because it is more comfortable. Because once people start feeling that they are losing grip to what they consider to be their personality, their souls, let's say, in a way, they started to get attached to things that will, let's say, anchor them back to their original culture. Because you kind of get into this chaotic phase that lasts, it varies from person to person. For me, it lasted, 5-6 years until I eventually wrapped my mind around it. And I don't think it is optional. I don't think you can choose not to go through this phase. And people, they try. And as I tell people here, we have students here in Canada. And we have met some immigrants and people. It's not something that you can sweep under the rug. You can try, but you will spend your life. You will spend your life, and it's never going to happen. So, because this is something that is, I think, is an obstacle. There are sets of hurdles that you have to overcome. You have to. I don't think it's optional, because I think people are afraid of what is on the other side.
But even that, like embracing the difference, I think, is make you more I don't know, it makes you integrate a little bit more easily and makes your life easier because you're not trying to fight this like new culture. You actually embrace it and you're trying to put that in your life. I don't know. In my case, it makes it so much easier to integrate with the people, to understand the culture, and to be less frustrated. Like you mentioned, like why people here in this country don't eat this kind of food? Why they don't watch soccer? Like if you start to understand, you embracing and go there like a sponge, like absorbing everything, trying to understand, trying to be open-minded. I think it makes your life so much easier. And in the long run, it makes you even for people that are from that country, makes you more willing to open the door and get you in because you seem like you're trying to integrate. You're not trying to stay and bring your own culture into the country. They're trying to embrace and integrate with the culture. So even for them, it's easier to open the door and let you in.
And something that funny that
metaphorically speaking.
Yeah, and something funny that happens is that, I mean, I know about Brazilian, right? So probably it's the same thing with you are from Italy, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Brazilians, they tended to become. I mean, in Canada, not so much. Because it has to do with how the immigration in Canada works, etc., etc. It's another matter. But in the US, for example, Brazilians become more Brazilian nationalists than they were when they were living in Brazil. It's something that is funny. They have like Brazilian flags in their car, and they listen to music in Portuguese very loud. And they install, back in the day, you had to pay a special service to watch Brazilian TV. You had to install a special antenna. And it's like they were holding on to their nationality in a way that was much stronger than people who were living in Brazil. That's something that was, I don't think it's unique. I heard some stories about that with Irish immigrants that came to North America back in after World War I, etc., etc.
Irish Mexican people.
Yeah, Irish Mexicans, etc., etc. They were actually many of the revolutionary movements that happened in Europe after that. They started actually in the US. So they were more nationalists when they leave their country than when they were there. I think this has to do a bit with that. They don't really adapt to the local culture. They start missing a lot of stuff. And they become like nationalists. It's very odd. Have you seen?
Yeah, and especially because when you leave your country, the image you have of your country is just what you remember you had. Yeah, like when you move to another country, you bring with you what you had in the other country. Yeah, but things evolve, things change, but you're not part of the change anymore. You're not part of the new country anymore. So sometimes the memories that you have, they are the good memories. Of course, people usually they remember the food, the music, the family, the friends. Yeah, so this is a kind of way of keeping yourself grounded, I think. But you have an ideal of your country in your mind. Yeah, you don't have what your country was like anymore. It's just an ideal.
Yeah, we forget the context. Huh?
Yeah, you forget the context because you're not part of the context anymore. And I think usually this is what happens because we tend to remember the good side of things. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And we forget why we actually left the country. There must be a reason why we decided to leave. And now going back to your story, because you were at a point you decided to move back to Brazil. Was actually your decision to leave Brazil, or was kind of like more the immigration?
It was an
kind
immigration
of
limitation thing because the student visa in the US doesn't evolve into something else, into a path to permanent residency as it happens in Canada. Basically, you, as long as you are studying or taking courses that are approved by the immigration, you can stay there on a F1 visa. But there is actually, unless you can find a company, which is a very difficult process to find a company to sponsor you, that's virtually impossible. So essentially, if your student visa in the US, for example, ends now, is October, late October now, I think you have 15 days back in my day, I think about 15 or 20 days, they call it grace period. It's basically, thanks for coming, thanks for the money, get out. That's basically what it means. There is no path to application to permanent residency. There are no processes. There is nothing. So it's basically, okay, thanks for coming. See you never. That's basically how it is. And there were some personal issues actually that were around that. I was married with a different person back in the day, and that was one of the reasons that I decided to come back. And we decided.
So you were married in the US?
I was
Sorry?
married to Aline is my second wife.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So I was married to somebody else back in the day.
But she was Brazilian.
She was Brazilian too. Yeah, I met her there, and we decided for a bunch of reasons to return to Brazil because nothing was actually happening there. You can't really evolve. You can't really open companies. You can't apply for anything. Everything's extremely difficult. So at one point, what the hell? And we decided to come back. And on the first semester of 2007. That's
okay. Because then when you moved back to Brazil, you decided to teach English. So you went from not speaking English at all to become an English teacher.
Yeah.
What was the process? Why? How did that happen? And why did you decide to teach English?
Well, to make a long story short, I had a bunch of ideas. I thought about opening, a bunch of businesses, open this, open that, but nothing actually seemed to work. Actually, I had forgotten how Brazil was. Right, so my memories of Brazil. So I know what Aline was talking about. My memories of Brazil were tainted. So I could remember only the good parts. When we got there, when I got there, it wasn't the same thing. So and suddenly the context is not that I had forgotten, but it was kind of all the way in the back door of my mind. So as soon as I arrived in Brazil, everything came back. Oh, damn. And then the difficulty to open businesses, the difficulty to do A, to do B, the difficulty to find a job, the bureaucracy, everything that had motivated me to leave initially came back. But hello, hi, just knocked on my door. And somebody offered me a job. Actually, before that, I taught English to a couple of neighbors where we were living because coincidentally, they were planning to come to Canada I think on a 2-month vacation or something. So I started that was my first contact with Canada. And somebody offered me a part-time position at, I think back, they were paying Canadian dollars, some $2 an hour, something like that.
$2 an hour.
Yeah.
Ouch.
No, less than that. It was $1, using today's exchange rate, $1.25 an hour. But it was a franchise, an English, an ESL school. They were always looking for people. They had the turnover rate is high. And I went there and I told the guy I have no experience. Oh, but you don't need it. You can just follow the book. We have the material. It was a translation-based method. Yeah, it was horrible. And I have always been very shy. Right, I'm still shy. It's easier nowadays. It becomes easier because as you get older, you start to give it less of an F, right? And the thought of entering into a classroom terrified me to a level that I cannot really put into words. Right, public speaking is what I think is even scarier than death to a lot of people on a scale. So death and public speaking, they're right there. They're competing for the situation that gives people the highest level of anxiety. And I had that level hard. So the thought of entering into a classroom, wow. And in school, I was so shy that I couldn't even sometimes say my name. I couldn't even answering the teacher. Oh, no, I would just raise my hand. I couldn't make presentation, nothing. So it was a shock to me that, 1 hour into it, and then the class was 2 hours blocks. And I taught the first class, and then the second, and then it very rapidly, it was oh, okay. I turned out to be good at it. The way that I could I was able to explain. I mean, as we talked about, I learned English in a very odd way. So I first started communicating and working. Almost 1 year later, I started studying. So I learned English in a very strange way. So I think I was able to understand what the students were going through. So they're asking questions that, okay, but if you do this, this, and this, how I develop my own way of learning certain things. And little by little, and then one, and then two, and classes started getting bigger. And nobody was more surprised than I was that I could actually do it, which is why to this day, I think we probably, how many classes we have a month here? I don't know, my yearly load of classes is something in the neighborhood of maybe like 2,200 classes a year, something like that. It's been like that for, So it's been a while. To this day, like 35,000 classes later, there are still people that they don't believe, or friends that I used to have, let's say. So after you go back to your account, it's not the same thing. But people, they don't believe it. It's not possible. How can you do that? You couldn't speak any, like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, you couldn't say anything. You couldn't even say your name. So they didn't get the whole transformation. It was a very personal transformation thing. And I turned out to like it. It turned out I was good at it. And when I got my first private students, I had no idea what I was doing, but they start asking for private classes. So I started to teach some of them, and sometimes in my house, sometimes in their houses. So things started picking up from there. And 2 years and a half after that, I got my first English certification from Cambridge. The CPE is the Cambridge Proficiency Exam, which I think is the most difficult of the Cambridge test.
Yeah.
Is a C2 test. And I got it. That was the first one. And in 2013, 4 years after that, 4, 5, 6, like 7 years after starting to teach English, I got my actual teaching certification, the Cambridge CELTA. So Aline and I went, she'll talk about her in a second. So basically, we went to São Paulo. We had to teach supervised classes, study, like it was like 100, and the whole thing, including the self-study, it was like 150, 60 hours of studying, like 4 weeks. So it
We're talking about the CELTA.
The CELTA, the Cambridge CELTA. So I got the CPE, the certification, 2 years after starting studying. 6, 7 years after starting teaching English, I got my first teaching certificate. I didn't go to college like 2 years after that. And I didn't get my post-graduation certificate in translation, English, Portuguese, like 2 years after that. So I am a late bloomer, let's say. And during all this time, I just continued to study, to practice. I kept my habits of reading magazines, books, listening to podcasts eventually, and movies, and eventually. And the things just went on from that. And I turned out to be good at teaching English as a second language. Nobody was more surprised than I was, basically. That's the short version.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. Like, everything started as an opportunity that somebody offered to you, and that turned into your career, and then now a business.
Yeah, but the first teaching thing, I had like no aspirations at all. It hadn't even crossed my mind. It was not even like on the top 100. What would you like to do? Even when I arrived, I think it was in March 2007. And if you had asked me back in the day, what would you like to do over the next year? If you give me 100 options, teaching English was not one of them. I cannot step into a classroom. And this is a school that
because that was stopping you. Was stopping you the fear of being in front of people? Not really.
And this is the thing. I think a lot of us, including students, including all of us, we have, I think, certain talents or certain skills that we needed to get exposed to some things in order for that to develop. But I was so afraid, and that's the thing. I ended up finding meaning in life by facing, because I need the money, the $1.50 now. I ended up finding meaning when I faced this gigantic dragon that was public speaking. And I learned how to teach properly a few years after that. So it became my own way of teaching English. And I think this is the thing with most people, like English as well. A lot of people, they think they have difficulties, they cannot do it, they cannot learn. Maybe because they don't put themselves out enough. Or
They protect themselves too much.
yeah, they try to decrease the stress level. They try to decrease the fear. They try to decrease it by using apps, translations, friends, etc., etc. And they stay there. And for me,
There's the fear of making mistakes because when you learn a language, you make mistakes after mistake, pronunciation, like we mentioned before, like even like being like I'm saying something uncomfortable and exactly feel stupid. Exactly.
I don't think that I even felt. It's not that I felt stupid. I came to realize that I was. And this is not an easy thing to admit that I'm stupid. I don't know things. What I'm doing, like even when I was like teaching my first classes, it was horrible. Unfortunately, I don't have records of that. I should have recorded a few. It was horrible. It was horrendous. So everything that we need to do that is new, we are going to do badly.
Yeah.
And the level,
totally.
the level of anxiety that you are doing, you can tell that, dude, this sucks. It is so paralyzing that people, they don't do it. Like driving, it's horrible. If you could see how we used to drive back in the day, right? And now, I mean, but it was horrible. And people, they're so afraid of it. This is the English thing that they don't face certain challenges. And because I think they're in a way afraid of what is behind the door, what's on the other side. But I had to do it on my first, this $50 an hour job. After, I don't know, a month after that, after I started teaching the classes at the school, the owner of the school there, it was a very small school. It doesn't even exist anymore. He offered me, not offered me, he basically told, I have a few classes here to the local, he closed the contract at a local military base in Joinville and the city where we are from. So basically there were 3 groups that he assigned to me. Okay. And he gave me the list, the students list there so I could take a look at it. There were like 45 people per class.
My God.
It was at the military base downtown. So the classes at the school were like 6, 7 people, 8, 4. So it was like a small setting. But I teach like 45 people without training.
45 soldiers.
45 soldiers, some officials, some lieutenants, some colonels were there. So, and their classroom is like old school. The classroom is like a stage, the place where it has like, I don't know, like
an auditorium,
maybe a 10 meter long like whiteboard. Actually, those are blackboards with a raised stage. So the stage was like half a meter high. So I had to step on it and look at the faces of like 45 people. And that was odd. Like, and people, when I got there for the first time, people I just opened the door. Okay, I went to the checkout point. So they got my ID, they gave me the keys. I opened the room and people started coming. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, 20. Like, Jesus Christ. And they had the books and their lieutenant was there. He was the highest rank official. So I talked to him. Okay, guys, we're going to start. Okay, so they got a bit quieter. So, hello, my name is Papa. And then it was a very difficult first week. And then things got easier after that. So I had to start to learn to speak in public forcefully. I didn't even want to, without training, without things. But I think I welcomed the challenge a bit. It's something that I need to do it. I had to do it. And it turned out that it was good. I was actually good after, I don't know, a week maybe, after 3, 4 classes. And a couple of them, they actually become private students later. So it became another thing. And after that, in the classrooms didn't scare me anymore.
Okay, sweet. It's interesting. So, like, Arnaldo, you went back to Brazil with your wife at the time. So, Aline, how did you get into the picture?
Yeah, how did I get into the picture?
Should I? Okay. Well, basically, that was my first school, right? And
no, not yet.
Okay, no, the one that I was talking about it earlier. This $1.50 an hour school. That was my first gig. My second one was somebody that I knew there. I don't remember who it was. Knew the supervisor of another English school, ESL school that was bigger. It paid a bit better. He had some training. etc., etc. The qualifications to the requirements were a bit higher. And then I went there one day, talked to the guy, and I told our former supervisor that I don't know exactly my teaching. I mean, I'm still learning. I have a couple classes at the military base here. I don't know how to do it. And he told me something. One of the things that one of the few things actually that made sense that he said was that he had learned a lot of English and public speaking and all by teaching. So it's like a kind of a hands-on thing, and that turned out to be true. Because the more I did, the more confident I got. The more confident I got, the better the class become. And guess who was working there at the time?
Moi.
Aline.
Yeah. So we met at this English school. I had been. You entered in 2007.
2000, and I think it was 8.
8.
Early 8, I think.
Yeah.
Or late 7, something like that.
I guess I had entered the school in 2007, but I met Arnaldo in 2007 to 8 at the end of the year.
At the end of the year. Mm-hmm.
And but at that time he was married. I had a boyfriend, soon to be fiancé, but we used to be colleagues. Yeah, we used to talk during our lunch breaks, and then we worked in that school for 2 more years. 2 more years.
For me, I left before.
No, for you maybe 1 year. I stayed, I think, 1 year and 2-3 months, and then after that we parted ways. Like I hadn't seen him for a while, but then I started working in another school, and in that school they used to offer those kind of certifications, Cambridge certifications, and Arnaldo had taken the CPE, and one day he went to this school to pick up his certificate, and I was working there. So I guess it was supposed to be.
Yeah, and when I went there to pick up my certificate, I knew that she was working there. And I asked to talk to her. So I think I had lost by that time, 20 kilos maybe?
20 kilos.
Yeah.
He looked, he was really thin. Like I got scared. Like, what the hell happened to you? Yeah.
Yeah. What an ass. Yeah.
Yeah.
Me, but under normal circumstances, when I'm fit, and by fit I mean fat, I am between 90 and 95. I think when I arrived in Brazil, I was 111 for reasons that stress, that they don't even matter anymore. I was 110, I think, and 11. So I lost weight. I think I got to 95, 100 maybe. And when I went there to pick up the certificate, I think it was 76.
Yeah.
75.
Yeah, it was really thin. And then we started talking about that. Like, are you okay? Has anything happened to you?
I was not.
Yeah.
Spoiler.
And he was not. Yeah. He had
Spoiler
told me
alert.
that he had gotten divorced. Then had separated from his wife, and my relationship didn't go on. I didn't get engaged, and we broke up. And then we started going out for coffees to talk about our exes. Like, who has ever done that? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and at that period, I was in the new apartment, you could call, where I was living after my divorce, my separation, let's say. And it was basically, you went there. You remember. It was basically like a mattress. I had an old desk, and my clothes in a garbage bag. So it was a very nice setting to bring a date. Right? But and I started going back. We'll go back to that in a second, just to link the ideas here. And I started teaching privately, almost out of necessity, because I had the desk there, and I started up, and I didn't have a car, divorced. So, but I had the desk, so let's start offering. I started sending emails. I started contacting people. I started really actively looking for my first real clients. And things picked up rapidly. Even though a lot of the friends that I had, a lot of the people that I knew in the business, they told me, who is going to go to your house to have classes? The point of private classes is exactly that. You go to a person's house. That was the idea back in the day. Nobody's going to come to your house. You're going to drive there. Who's going to do that? Well, it turned out a lot of people did. And things picked up rapidly. And at one point, I had a waiting list had more people than I could fit on my schedule, and I started to.
No, then we.
No.
But this is after.
Yeah, this is
after.
a few months after. Yeah.
So we started going out, and then things picked up. Yes, and then in December in 2009,
Something like that.
we started living together. Some months after we got married, and I was still working in that school, that English school. But then I was so stressed because I was working like a dog. Yeah, I had so many classes. I spent the whole day at the school. I had to teach children, teenagers, adults. Yes, I was really, really stressed. And then Arnaldo started saying, why don't you get some private classes, maybe leave the school? Yeah, because at that time he had already been teaching private classes for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 2011, in the middle of 2011, I decided to leave the school where I worked. And then we started working together, offering private classes, as we had a very, very, very small apartment. Like, it was tiny. We just had like the bedroom, a bathroom, a living room / kitchen, etc. And there was just this desk. Yeah, we used to split our schedule in a way that some classes I would teach at the apartment, some classes I went to my client's house. I used to teach just around the neighborhood because I could go walking. Yeah, I just put everything in my backpack, my computer, books, dictionary, and I went walking. And after some time, we were able to buy a car, a very old car. And then some of the classes Arnaldo used to give at companies. Yeah, so when he was out, I was in teaching. When he was in, I was out teaching. It was really, really hard. But then after that, we decided to save some money, try to save some money to go to São Paulo to do that course that he was talking about, the CELTA, which is a very important certification for teachers. And it was something that was really, really expensive for us because we studied together. So you had to pay for the 2 courses. We had to stay 30 days in São Paulo. So we paid accommodation in São Paulo. We paid food, transport, and we were still paying rent in our city. Yeah, so for us, it was like, whoa. But it was like a turning page for us. It was a really, really important.
It took us, I think, a couple years to pay for that.
We had some debts for a while until we were able to pay for everything. But it was a very important risk that we had to take because we didn't want just to teach English. I don't know if you know what I mean. We would like to become English teachers. Yes, like to have an education for that, to have certificates for that, because I believe that this happens in Brazil and also in other countries. There are many, many people who sometimes travel abroad, live abroad for a while, and they start teaching English as an extra job. Yeah. But in a way, these people who teach English as an extra way of making money, some of them, of course, they are very good. They do a good job, yeah. But most of them, they see this as just a side gig, They're not so professional. They're not so disciplined. They're not so punctual. And English teachers in Brazil, they tend to have a bad thing, yeah, like because people they usually put all of us in the same kind of bag. Yeah. You teach English. That's nice. That's cool. You teach English. Yeah.
And normally people, they do it as a hobby, which is why one of the most common questions we used to have was people that would just send an email or somebody recommended you. Are you still teaching it?
Yeah.
It's like, because people, they just do it as a hobby until they find let's say, a real job.
And actually some people don't even, you teach English but you don't work.
Yeah.
This is so normal. No, people ask us this all the time. But you only teach English, like you don't do anything else of your life. So
almost like being a babysitter.
And then we decided to take this course in São Paulo. So it was a huge investment for us But while we were in São Paulo, we started receiving some emails, yes, and then people looking for classes. It was like the whole January,
Yeah.
So we spent the whole January in São Paulo, and while we were there, we received some emails from people looking for classes, and then we had to make a decision, because either we would continue the way we were, living in that very small apartment and having to split our schedule in order to work, or we would, as soon as we got back to Joinville, we would find a bigger apartment and then go full schedule, so we could really have, I would have my own office, Arnaldo would have his own office, so we could start receiving more students, and this is what happened.
But it was a leap of faith.
No, it was a gigantic leap of faith, because actually we were risking not everything we had. We were risking even things that we didn't have yet. So we spent like 2-3 years, like very hard 2-3 years. Like
it could have backfired big.
But we worked like crazy. We didn't allow things to backfire because we were working like almost 24/7, in order to pay all the investment that we had done in the course, moving to a bigger apartment and etc. But it paid off eventually. So we lived and worked in that second apartment for 5 years. 3 years. 3 years. So we stayed in that apartment for 3 years, and this is when, like, during that period, we started thinking like a school. It was not like Arnaldo's private students, Aline's private students. We started like looking at what we were doing as, no, now we have a school. And in that period of time, we started like working on branding, like trying to organize things in a way that we had a standard. Yes, of course, we teach differently. As English teachers, we have our style of teaching, but the students, if I get Arnaldo's students, they will know that the class will have the same quality, the same standard, and vice versa.
But the approach is different.
The approach is different, but the quality, everything we do in class follows a pattern, a standard, and we wanted to have that. So we started like organizing everything, creating our own material, creating some specific things that only the two of us would use with the students to bring a little more unit, to what we were doing. And then as things started getting better, it's time to move again. So we rented a house. Actually, we were not looking for a house. Like the house appeared to us. It used to belong to a student of ours. And she said, my mom has a house and I think it's just perfect for you, because the house, we used to live in the front part of the house, and then in the back of the house, there were some separate rooms. So the school would be totally separated from our house. And that was really nice. So we moved to the house, and this is where our school really grew. We had a school, we had, each one of us had our own classrooms. We had a specific place for the students with a lounge, a library. So we really had this school, like in a more traditional way of speaking. And in that place, we started teaching a lot. We became a little more known in the city. People were recommending us around. And then this is when we started thinking about moving abroad.
It was basically at the same time that 2015 we started looking at.
We started living in that house in 2015. And then we started looking like, it would be nice if we started thinking about living abroad and maybe spending some time abroad in a different country. And this is when we started doing some research where it would be possible to go, because we didn't, we knew we would have to take some risks. There are no objectives reached without taking risks. We knew that. but we didn't want to do anything stupid. Yeah, so for us, we would never, because Arnaldo had suffered a lot in the USA, yeah, and he went to a country where he said he had to go back to Brazil because there was no way for him to continue there if he hadn't been studying something. Yeah, so because of that, he came back to Brazil, and we didn't want to go to a place in which we would always have this kind of shadow behind us. Yeah, we didn't want to go to a place where it would not be possible for us to immigrate, yeah, to become permanent residents. So we started checking for countries in which would be possible for us to immigrate, that there would be a process, that we could follow steps. And then Canada appeared on our radar.
Yeah, I mean, we actually looked into to other places as well.
Australia, New Zealand.
And I don't know exactly when. I have no recollection of when exactly Canada came into the picture. But it did eventually.
No, I'd like to ask you a few questions just for on this topic before we move forward. Just because, like, sounds like you guys already had like your business running. You now got a good reputation. People start like coming to you. You don't have to look for new clients. People are coming to you. So it seems like for like in the normal circumstances, people would be happy. They're like they're stable. They got like a stable business and everything else. And now you guys is like, okay, everything is going well. Let's move to a new country and start all over. Like, why did you guys decide to leave everything? Because now, like Arnaldo, you said before, you left everything behind, but you didn't have much. Now you guys have a business. You have you got clients and everything. So why did you decide this time to leave like this situation and start all over in a new country?
Yeah. Well, when we were talking earlier about the culture shock, there are two things that happen, right? Unfortunately, there isn't a lot of literature on the subject, but there is on the culture shock. You can find about the reverse culture shock. There isn't, the literature is not there. I found only one book about that from, I think, an American psychologist, etc. But it's very theoretical, right? Because they can't really know, right? So my reverse culture shock was worse than my culture shock. So coming back to Brazil for me was worse than going to the US. Not for the reasons that people, it's a better country. No, not in that way. The readaptation to my previous culture, let's say, that according to the literature of the culture shock should have gone through phases, right? It's like a grieving process, right? First you deny it and then you accept it and then eventually you go back to it, you rekindle relationships, etc., etc. But as it turned out, it did not happen like that. So I didn't really readapt. And I talked over the years, I've talked to a lot of people about that, and they tell me the same thing, that they never really readapted to Brazil, let's say. They got used to it, because you do get used to it, but it's kind of a splinter in your mind, to paraphrase a bit the Matrix. It's there. And I couldn't really get past that. So it was just something that I needed to leave again. I needed to get out. I couldn't readapt to Brazil. I couldn't readapt to the way of life, couldn't readapt to the culture, couldn't readapt to the sport, to the weather. So I had changed it, I think, too much more than I should have in order to readapt. I was already gone, let's say, in that way. And I started from very early on, when we started dating, I was always talking a bit about, we should move, we should, go to other countries, etc. But I didn't force you.
No, I was not forced at all, because I started studying English when I was very young. Yeah, like I was raised in a family like we didn't have much, but my father he loved music and he used to listen to a lot of music in English, and we used to watch films in English all the time, and I was always so fascinated by that language, and I decided when I was 8-9 years old that I needed to learn English. I don't know why, but I wanted to learn English. I started imitating people on films, like I didn't even know what I was repeating to, but very early on, I decided that I wanted to learn English. And then at that time, I couldn't go to an English school or something. So I picked some books. I borrowed some books from some family members that had started studying but then gave up. My father started studying at the company but then gave up. And then I had some of his books. And then I studied by myself at home, like from 9 to 13 years old, something like that. And then when I was 13 years old, my father sent me to an ESL school. He started learning English there, the right way, let's say. But the kind of study that I did at home, the way I could, was really productive, because when I went to school to study English, I started in the intermediate level. So that period that I studied English at home was not was not worth it. Yeah, I learned a lot. And then I got to the intermediate level at the school. And then 2 years after that, when I was 16, I started teaching at the school. So I started teaching when I was 16 years old. But up until we got married and we traveled to Scotland and England in 2014 to 15, 13 to 14, I had never been abroad before. And this was something that I've always wanted. I've always wanted to travel a lot, especially to English-speaking countries, because I had spent all my life studying English, and I really wanted to put myself into test, the real thing. I want to talk to people in real life, not in the scenario of a school, a class. Yes, because we can only put our English to test here. Yeah, because even though we speak English the whole day with our students, we are always leveling our English. Yeah, it's never the real thing. Yeah, and I always wanted to have this kind of experience. I really need to test if my English is good enough. Yeah, but the only way to do it would be spending some time abroad. And then when we started dating, Arnaldo used to talk a lot about living abroad, etc. And then I've always wanted that. Yeah, and then we started talking, but something that was very clear in my mind: I'll just go if we can go the right way. Yeah, because my intention is not, I don't want to go back to Brazil. Yeah, that's why we took such a long time to plan everything, to make the decision. When we started thinking about Canada, it was 2015. We had just moved to that house, and we decided to come to Toronto to see, okay, let's see how we feel in Canada. Yeah, so to really check if we can go on with the plan or not. So we came here, we spent 2 weeks in Toronto, we explored the city, we walked a lot. There were some days on which we walked 15, 20, 25 kilometers, because we really wanted to feel the city. Yeah, we talked to people, we stayed in an Airbnb, we went to supermarkets, to markets. We wanted to live the Canadian way. Yeah, so after we went back to Brazil, after this trip, said, wow, this is what we want. Yeah, and this is when we started really studying the possibilities, really doing research, what we could do in order to come. And this is a long process, yeah, because we wanted to do things the right way, because we don't have the intention to go back. Yeah, of course, we cannot control everything regarding our destiny. Yeah, we do what we can, but whatever we can do to stay here, we will do. Yeah, because we came for good. We didn't come as a temporary adventure. Yeah, this is our home now. And you see, the stakes were really high. Yeah, so we wanted to do things the right way. And he didn't force me to anything. This was also a dream that I had. And but it was hard work, yeah, especially thinking about, okay, now that we have this school set up, yeah, people are coming, people like our work, they recommend us to other people, we have a good reputation. But even though we were happy, professionally speaking, let's say, we were not happy in the sense of fulfillment. Yeah, like we wanted more. We wanted to be challenged. Yeah, and something that always bothered us about living there was lack of safety. Yeah, we never felt safe in our city, in our house. Yeah, we used to live in a house. We had cameras all around the house. Yeah, we had an electronic gate, a very high gate. We never felt safe there. So, okay, we were good, let's say, professionally speaking, but we were always like looking over our shoulders. Yeah, I was afraid to walk around by myself, especially at night. Yeah, so these kind of things, they started to bother us more and more and more, you know.
Yeah, I've always got bothered by that. I mean, after living in the US for so long, I mean, the US is not like a paramount of personal safety, but Brazil, it's impossible virtually in the medium and big cities for you like to take a walk at night or in the afternoon or with your cell phone or with a nice bike. And I think after I returned to Brazil, this started to bother me even more because now we kind of know that this is not normal. Like we get used to it, right? I always joke with Aline that if the series like The Walking Dead happened in Brazil, the zombies wouldn't stand a chance.
Yes.
They would never get past the gates. They would never be able to get into the house. It would never happen. Never happen unless they could jump like, electrified fences. And this started to bother us like really like a lot.
Deeply.
Yeah. That was the beginning of the Canadian idea.
Mm-hmm. And we wanted more. We wanted to have like we used to live in a good place, in a good neighborhood in our city, but we didn't have like places to go, like parks. We really, Arnaldo and I, we really love nature. Yeah, like going to a park, doing a picnic, looking at these kind of places, and we didn't have this kind of opportunities there. Yeah, and education, and we wanted, I think we got to an age, yeah, like we had been married for 7-8 years, and then we had the school was fine, and we had the students, more and more clients, but I think we got to a point that we needed a challenge.
The adventure.
Yeah.
It was more, I think it's not that it's not possible to have a good life there. It's possible. You can have a good life anywhere. And it's not that it's bad, because we actually got better over the last 20 years or so. But for us, I think it was more this call to adventure. We had to do something.
Okay.
But we talked about that a lot. I mean, if we don't do it, we will regret eventually. When we are like 50, 60 years old, we should have done that. Right? It was one of those pivotal moments that we just let's do it.
Let's do it. Yeah. And
Yeah.
then we started looking at possibilities. Yes. And then in 2016,
Yeah,
we started our process, our immigration process per se. Then in 2017, we got the result that our process had been approved. Then 2018, we did our first landing, yeah, but we didn't stay here in 2018. We did what they call soft landing. So we landed, we did everything we needed to do, and then we took the opportunity to visit Toronto again. We explored Ottawa a little, Montreal a little, because we still didn't know where we were going to live. Yeah, so we were still not sure. We would like to stay in Toronto, but later we changed our minds. And then we came back, and then we came for good, like last year. We were supposed to arrive here in April 2020, but because of the pandemic, everything, our plans changed, and we were only able to come in June 2020. But during that time, like we really bet that this plan would work. Yes, but we had plan B, plan C, plan D, because we would come anyway. Yeah, maybe not here. We would try another country, but this was something that we really, really, really needed to try. But okay, we continue working, we continue with our lives. We didn't tell anyone in our families up to the moment that we had the confirmation. Yeah, like, because I think that sometimes we shouldn't tell people everything we want to do. Yeah, and it's like this. This was our plan. Yeah,
It was a personal matter.
and it
It's
was
not
personal.
something-
Yeah, like because some people they would like other people to understand why you do things. Like it's your journey. Yeah, people don't need to understand why you do things. Yes, and of course, and your question is very good, because a lot of people, if we told them, okay, we want to move to another country, they would say, okay, but why? You have such a good life here. You have your own business. You have a lot of students. Why do you want to leave everything behind?
But and it's not about that. For most people, the sole reason to immigrate is because you wanted to improve your life or to live in a place where you can buy iPhones for $500. That's what a lot of people think immigration is. Right? And this is not the point. Is not because the situation in Brazil was that bad. It's not because Canada is that good. It has more to do with our personal, let's
growth.
say, yeah. I mean, with our personal call to adventure. Basically, that's the better definition.
So, Aline, you mentioned like the soft landing and the process of moving to Canada. Can we maybe start like explain like what soft landing is, and also what was the process you guys were taking to move to Canada? I guess it was like a permanent residency. So you guys were on the process and you moved on with a permanent resident already, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We entered the express entry, through the federal skilled worker. And we, at that time, for us, it was like a big thing, because I was turning 34 to 35 very soon. So there's a kind of, after you become 35, you start losing points, yes, because it's a point-based system, yes. And for us, even though we were a little old, to apply through the express entry, our level of English was really high. So this was really gave us the extra points, so we were approved through the express entry. We got our approval on October 2017, and we did our landing in February 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And this soft landing, they call it soft landing because you don't come to stay. Yeah, you do your landing, you get the documents you need, and then you can go back to your country. We did that because we had a school in Brazil, like we had the house, we had everything going on, we had our business going on. So we decided, as we have this time to organize things, we decided to do the soft landing so we could do what we had to do and then go back to Brazil to, little by little, we start planning the moving per se. Talking to students, explaining everything that was going to happen very soon, talk to family, deliver the house, sell our things, really start the move, to another country, because we didn't want to do things in a hurry. And as we had a business, we had a lot of people involved in the business. We wanted to do things in a way that we wouldn't give them the impression that we don't care about you. We're moving to another country, we don't care about you. No, actually, we were very careful with everything. And so that we were able to move to Canada with all the students. We kept all the students, but the difference is that the classes, instead of they coming to our house, our school there, we started teaching online. But they came with us, let's say.
I need to clarify a bit about the process of the soft landing thing. The reason that we came in February is because when you get approved, when your permanent residence is approved through the express entry, you will receive a visa. It's called, I don't know exactly the name, it's like an IM1, whatever. It's like the immigrant visa. And this visa has a due date, has a validation period. which is 1 year after you do the medical. So there is a sort of a procedure. And our visa would expire
in March.
I think in March or April, something like that. So
on March 9th.
Until that date, we had to come to Canada and finalize the process, which is basically you arrive at the airport, you tell the agent that I'm arriving here, I'm doing my immigrant landing. So from there, they direct you to a different office, and from there you are processed. You had another, let's say, a mini interview with another agent. They give we get our SIN number. And basically, welcome to Canada. Congratulations, you are now a resident. And they write on a piece of paper that you're official. We have the stamps. Now our residency starts to come. And under Canadian law, a permanent resident can stay out of Canada for up to 2 years within 5. So during let's say we landed in February 2018, we had it to February 2023. To be in Canada for 2 years. So by the end of 23, we would have to be in Canada for 2. So we kind of play with that.
This extra time allowed us to really do things like quietly, with
slowly. It didn't have to be so traumatic.
Yes, and talking to people little by little, especially with our clients. Because once you tell them, like, okay, we're going to Canada, they want to understand why. Like, come on, tell us about that.
We had this conversation.
Yeah, like we repeated the same story like many
over
times.
and over and over.
But it was necessary because we respect our students, yes, and it was nice for them to understand why we were coming. And most of them, actually 99.9% of them, they jumped. Like, okay, so you will be able to teach just online. Okay, we will continue with the classes. So, okay, we will have to adapt because after 2019, 2020, like teaching online, it's the most basic thing. But in that period, people didn't do that. So we really had to talk to all the students, teach them how to have a class online, teach them how to use the software, how the classes would work. There were lots of testing, but almost 100% of them, they accepted the idea and they continue studying with us. This is really nice.
You guys kind of have like a 2 years window to get ready. What was the step that you guys took? Like, because you landed the first time in Toronto, but now you live in Calgary. So even then, like, how did you guys pick a city to live in? Or what was the process you guys went through to
as Aline mentioned, along to the first half of your question there, we went to Toronto. I mean, the initial idea was Toronto. Toronto was we loved Toronto. It is a great city. We loved it. But when we visited Toronto for the first time, the cost of living there was much cheaper than it was now. People who didn't really who don't really follow the trends, the price, etc. They don't really know how much the prices have increased. Like in 2015, 16, you could rent an apartment in Toronto for 1.3, 1.4, 1.2. So that was the budget that we had in mind. Nowadays, it's like 2.5, 2.7, 3,000. It's difficult to find anything like under 2K. And we started considering other options. And we have a student that you can...
so in 2018, we came to Canada to do the landing. So we spent some more days in Toronto and also to check the prices, like personally. And we also decided to visit Ottawa, Richmond Hill. I have a friend who lives there. And also we went to Montreal. But we didn't fall in love in any of those cities. So we came back to Brazil still thinking, okay, we haven't decided where to live. Because Toronto was too expensive in 2018 if we compared to 2015 when we had been there. Like the prices, they
almost doubled.
Almost doubled. It was a spike in the prices. And then we started looking around, and I had a student, and a long, long time ago, he said that he had been to Calgary studying. He did an exchange program here to study English. He stayed here for 3 months. He lives in a with a family, a Canadian family. So he was in love with Calgary. Yeah, and he was always talking about Calgary. Why don't you visit Calgary? Calgary is a possibility. And then we started doing some research, checking other possible cities, mostly in Ontario. Yeah, we would like to continue in Ontario. But then we started looking at other places, some lists of best cities to live in Canada, etc. And then Calgary always appeared in our researches. Yes, and then, okay, so we have this little time. We don't want to make a decision in a hurry. So in 2019,
yeah.
we decided to come to Calgary for a few days to see what the city was like. And we spent 9 days here. We rented an Airbnb. We walked around the same we did in Toronto when we were there. And we just fell in love with the city. The vibe here was what we were looking for, because the city has a lot of nature, lots of parks everywhere. And Calgary is, I don't know if one of the most, but maybe it is the sunniest city in Canada. So we had very good weather when we were here. It was summer, but it was not that hot, because in Brazil, we used to live in a very hot city, and we didn't want to have that kind of experience again.
No thanks.
So we like cold. So we came in the summer, but it was bearable. It was not, because here is dry, it's not very humid. So you don't feel the heat so much. So we spent some days here. We loved the city. And then when we went back to Joinville, we had already decided, let's go to Calgary.
We made the decision
here.
On the same day or the second day.
Second day we were here. This is where we want to live, for sure. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what was that was other process? I mean, I guess you transition from a normal business, normal classes to internet, so that you were able to keep your clients and move to Canada with the same business running. Was there anything else that you guys were planning, or things that you went through, the things that you might recommend for people that move to Canada to do the same way?
Oh, I mean, it really depends on how people are planning to come. So nowadays, I mean, this is now. We are in October 2021 here. The regular express entry, and by regular I mean the federal skilled worker stream, at the moment is not an option. Because since the pandemic starts, the Canadian government has not really issued any invitations for the federal skilled worker. Only for people who are here, or they have a student permit, or they have a job offer, or they have a job. So there are different processes now. But my first piece of advice, I think, for people would be to try to research where you want to live. Because Canada is an enormous country. So in the provinces, the cities are very different. The weather is very different. The way that people receive immigrants, I think it's different. So it is at least a good idea, because the prices, if you come here to study, which is, I think most people come here through the student visa, the prices are similar in all the provinces. So you needed to check which province has a better job market, if it's easier to find a job, if it's easier for your area, if you like the cold weather, if you don't. Because if you don't like the cold weather, I don't think Canada is for you. Okay? Mm-hmm. So even places that have mild weather, like British Columbia, it's still cold. So Canada is not a tropical country. That's people that they need to have in mind. Like now, it's very sunny, really, really sunny. I think if you're watching this video now, you can see it's really sunny. But the temperature now is 0. It was minus 5 in the morning. And it's going to be like minus 10 tonight. And it's going to be like that, minus 10, minus 15, minus 20 until next year.
Until March,
there will
April.
be like mild periods, but it's cold. So in this, if it's like the temperature, the weather really bothers you, it affects your lifestyle. I cannot stand the cold. Yes, like for example,
to Canada.
Well, you can go to other places like not Alberta. Don't come to Alberta because you have a miserable time. So then you have to look for places that have like better weather. For other people, they like to stay near the mountains, or they like to stay near the United States, which is why we wanted to go to Ontario in the first place, because I have family in the Chicago area. So it'll be closer, really close to me to go to the US. And for some people, the proximity to the United States is a thing. For people, they want to stay near because they speak French, they want to stay near the French provinces. Some people want to stay near the mountains. That's why we decided to come here. We can see the mountains almost from our condominium here. Some people want to stay near ski stations, or they want to stay near the beach, and then Vancouver is an option.
Vancouver, the other coast,
but the other coast is even colder. It's in the Atlantic Ocean, so that's freezing. But it is a very beautiful region. So this is, there are lots of things that need to be taken into consideration before people make a decision. But what is paramount, obviously, study English, speak English, because this is going to save you time. Because if you do it, if you make something stupid like I did when I immigrated for the first time, don't follow my path. Oh, I'm going to learn English when I get there. Odds are that you won't, or at least not for 6 months, 1 year, a year and a half. And coming here
you're going to have a hard time.
Yeah, and coming here to study is very expensive. So you need to actually hit the ground running as soon as you get here, at least having enough English to work in a supermarket or work in a restaurant. Right? But to do plenty of research and come, and there are, I think, 80 different programs to immigrate to Canada. And coming here illegally, like a lot of people do when they go to the United States, is not a thing, because Canada is not the United States. I think that was one of your questions when we talked the other day as well. Things are really different here. So if the idea is to come here to try to stay here illegally, etc., don't.
So Arnaldo, you now lived in Canada and the US, and even though they're similar, they're like a similar culture and similar country. They got, especially Canada, has got influenced a lot by the US. But now that you lived in both countries, what's the difference that you saw within the two countries?
I mean, culturally speaking, I have the opinion that Canada is completely different. It is they share some traits. I mean, the language is the same, some values they are the same. But for immigrants, for example, for us, I think Canada is much more welcoming. Because like in Canada, immigrants, they are part of the fabric of society. We are the fact that we are having this conversation here and people will listen to it is proof of that. If you try to do that, for example, you can do it, right? But in the American context, for example, people will make fun of you. Oh, but you don't even speak American English, or like people told me before, you don't speak American, right? Like American as a language. They make fun of you. Immigrants are not really well accepted in the United States. They're just not. So it is like you are never really part of the, let's say, the mainstream culture. So you will always be, in the eyes of lots of people, a second-rated citizen, let's say. Even if you have documents, or because you speak with an accent like we do, or because you have a different color, or because you have a different religion, or because you have different habits, anything. There is a reason for you to be ostracized. So in the US, the vibe, especially for the immigrant community, is much less accepting. And this is not a thing in Canada. In Canada, we feel really welcome. Because in the United States, for example, let me give a practical example, right? If you go, for example, to the police in the United States, right? If you tell what do you think is the ethnicity or the nationality of the people who work there at this police department, 100%, 98 would be, and the 2% would be the people who do the cleaning, right? Not of the police officers, the investigators, American, like Johnson, all of them, they're all American. If you go to a place like public schools, the staff works there, American, the American, right? If you go to any higher position, there is almost a 100% certainty that the people who work there, they are American. They're the Jefferson Johnson American. While in Canada, this is something a bit difficult even for people to believe. Especially, a lot of people think, I have friends in the United States too, people they live in the US, they don't believe that it is not possible. But here, the people that were cutting the grass today, they were actually throwing salt because it's starting to snow here. You could hear the snow blowers, you could hear the machines, etc. In the US, you hear that. In 99% of cases, there will be or Brazilians or Mexicans or some immigrants working there. Or maybe there'll be one American driving the car and all the immigrants working. So it is these what Americans consider to be like low jobs.
Low-level jobs.
Yeah, low-level jobs, entry-level jobs. Mm-hmm. In the US, like almost 100%, they are immigrants. Garbage collectors, bus drivers, delivery drivers, people like gardeners, immigrants. So there is a type of a glass ceiling that, of course, you can break it. I mean, you can do it. I mean, it is a great country. I love the US. Half of my family, lives there. But in Canada, the immigrants here, they are part of society. They are everywhere. So people think that, I have heard that, you guys have an accent. But apparently you have not been to Canada. You need to see the people who work in the public departments here in Calgary. Like 60% of people there, they speak English worse than us. Right? The police, a lot of police, they are visually from a different ethnicity. You can tell by the color of the skin. You can tell sometimes they wear something from their culture. They were like a piece of cloth. You can tell. So a lot of the police force in Calgary, for example, they are not Canadian. Or if they are, it's first generation. The mayor here, he was born here, yeah?
He was born here, but his family, I don't remember.
From India.
He's not from India.
But India is there. He's from
Middle East, yeah. I guess.
And even his name. So he's clearly not a white Caucasian Canadian. Mm-hmm. The same thing in Edmonton. The same thing now. The new mayor now. There was a new election now. I don't know exactly where her. I think it's India or Pakistan. I don't know, but not Canadian. You can tell by the name. The mayor of the capital of Alberta, Edmonton. He immigrated to Canada. Very interesting story. In 2004, I think. He was a bus driver until a few years ago. He decided to run for city council. He won, and now he ran for mayor, and he won. And immigrants, and we immigrants, we are part of the Canadian fabric. And this is not necessarily, especially first generation. So the doctors, I don't know in Ontario exactly how it is, but the doctors really, I haven't met one single Canadian doctors. They are all, ours is from Libya, great doctor. His boss, I think, is from India. Most of them were there from India or from Libya. There is one or two from Brazil. The same thing with the dentists. The same thing with bank managers, real estate agents. So all these are what they're considered to be, let's say, high jobs. Let's say, business people, business owners, investment managers, bank managers. That in the United States, they're like 99% Americans here is occupied by immigrants. And you find Canadians driving food trucks, driving buses, cutting the grass, also in high position. So it's kind of there is a mix. There is not really this immigrant segregation that it was very visible in the United States. This is one of the things that I think I like the most here.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Absolutely. I can see even in Vancouver, there's like so many mix of cultures, and that's, if you're an immigrant, it's just, as you mentioned, it's part of this normal part of society, or not somebody else is just part of it. And I know this question, I might know the answer, but I'll ask you anyway, because I asked this question to all of my guests. Do you have any regrets about leaving Brazil?
No, not at all. Of course, I miss family, I miss friends. Yes, I miss Brazilian food, but I can cook Brazilian food here, but not at all.
And maybe, no. Maybe I wish I had done it sooner.
Yeah.
But that's it. No, not at all. It was a very well thought decision. And even if what if it doesn't work? What if you need to come back? That doesn't matter. That doesn't change the fact that the decision was taken, and we will stand by it, even if we change path. But nothing. There is nothing. Canada is a great country. It takes preparation. It takes resilience. It takes you needed to willingly open the door to that adventure and so on. But it is worth it.
And what's the best thing about moving to Canada?
In practical
Or leaving
terms,
your country. I want to add.
For me, I guess it was the huge door of opportunities that we have opened. Yeah, because for me, first of all, the language, as I said before, I've always wanted to live in a country where I could speak English because I like English. I love this language. And so the language for me is really important. And thinking about English and the country where I'm living today, we have so many possibilities when it comes to studies, different areas of expertise. We have access. For me, I have a very loving relationship with education. And here there are so many possibilities. So many different courses, even the library. In our city, we hardly ever had a library. And here we have so many. We have 21 public libraries. They have so much material. They have so many programs. The access that we have here to knowledge, to experiences, and even different cultures. Yes, because we live in a multicultural country. So the opportunity to know more about the Canadian lifestyle, the Indian lifestyle, the Chinese lifestyle. We are in a place where everything and everybody is welcome. And we have this possibility of really exchanging ideas to a lot of people from a very different walk of life, from a different country with different experiences. And I think that it's Einstein used to say, once your mind opens to new possibilities, you can never go back to what you were before. Our mind has expanded here in a way that we imagine it would be like that, but not exactly like that. And I cannot see myself going back to where I was before, physically, mentally, emotionally, psychologically speaking. And I think that the struggle was really important because it also made us grow. We're stronger now. And there are a very few things that we are afraid of because we know we can do it.
Oh, being a bit more, Aline just mentioned the subjective reasons. Okay? Being a bit more practical, right? I think in a way for us, when we talked about the call to adventure, I think in a way we have to become. Is not only a matter of getting the permanent residency or getting the documents or getting not. We needed to be the kind of person that goes through the process of immigrating, goes through the process of learning the language, goes through the process of adapting to a new culture. We needed to go through the process. We needed to overcome the challenges to try to see what we are made of. That's the thing that I think immigration has posed so many hurdles that we are able to do things that we never thought we could. And being a bit more practical, Brazil is a very violent country. Right? It's really violent. So we used to, for example, hide our cell phones at home when we would go for a walk. If you have a bike, the bike has to be low quality because nobody would pull a gun on you to steal it. Your car cannot be very new or cannot be very. You can do it. It's not that you cannot do it. Right? But in the end, we lived in a very nice place for living standards. And I think out of the, maybe 80 houses there, 70 houses there, I think our house and the flower shop that it was our friend that were the only place that hadn't been invaded.
Broken
right?
into, yeah.
Well, I mean that literally. I mean invaded. It's not a burglary like people think in Canada. People, somebody go into your house, they just pick the lock, they just no. People actually go into the house with you wielding guns and machine guns, etc. Which actually happened to two of our neighbors. And when you have your neighbors like 10 meters from you across the street, having like gangs with like 7-8 people invading his house with machine guns, killing they kill his cat. So when those type of things happen, and Brazil has become unfortunately a kleptocracy. I mean, I'm not going to go into politics, but Brazil doesn't have a democracy. We have a kleptocracy, and we didn't really see. I still don't actually, unfortunately, politically and economically speaking, a lot of progress, at least over the next like 20 years. So there were like practical reasons and let's say our own philosophical reasons for immigrating.
Yeah, and we think about, for example, here you have life quality. And life quality for us is to feel safe, is to have a place to go on the weekend, is to be able to go hiking in the mountains. And we know that the most dangerous thing that could happen would be to see a bear.
Which actually happened.
Actually happened, but not somebody would attack us or something. Yeah, and in Brazil, we had never thought about starting a family, having children, exactly because of the violence and that sense of not being safe all the time. Here is a possibility. Yeah, we can see this happening. So there are many practical reasons why we don't regret this decision. There are many psychological reasons, emotional reasons. So as Arnaldo said, even if one day something happens and we have to go back, at least we did it. Yeah. We risked it and we really, okay, there's this other possibility. Yeah. That there's this other kind of life, because we feel so limited. We felt so limited there.
Oh yeah, I just don't want to give you the impression that I know people, they tend to feel hurt when they hear that. I mean, the practical thing that Brazil is unsafe, etc., etc. Everybody knows that, right? We know actually better than most people. But that was not the main reason. No, the main reason was actually we wanted to open the door to adventure. Something that we felt that if we don't do this, we will regret. When we were 70 years old, we should have immigrated when we could. Yeah, we should. Yeah, and then we started kind of overthinking this until we eventually did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you guys share a lot of information, a lot of things that you guys done. But is there any other advice you guys want to give to the listeners? They want to move. They want to move to Canada. They want to move abroad.
Well,
I would say, first of all, of course, we're English teachers, but that's not the point. Yeah, like learning English, of course. I guess knowing exactly what you want, this helps a lot, because there are, and most of all, I think knowing why you want to come. Yeah, because as Arnaldo was saying, like we didn't come because we wanted to leave Brazil. We came because we wanted the challenge. We wanted to know what it's like to live in another country. Yeah.
Canada was the means to an end.
Yeah, and a lot of people, they know, no, I have to leave my country. Yeah, no, and usually this is not a good reason enough to go through all the process, because it's a long process, it's an expensive process, it's hard. And if you don't know exactly why you are doing this, you might give up, because there are so many steps that we needed to take. Yeah, you need to study a lot about the process. You need to sacrifice time, sacrifice relationships, sacrifice money, sacrifice health sometimes. So you really, really need to want this. Yeah, and you have to know why you want this. Yeah.
And the thing is, when we immigrate, you are going to have to face some demons that you might not want to.
Like?
Okay. Well, you will face first of all, Canada is not what people think is, especially people who are dreaming about Canada. They keep watching those vlogs and blogs and Expedia videos about Canada. They think it's like they're going to Nirvana, right? It's not that. So the thing is, Canada is much better and much worse than that. It's like a mix of things, and you will have to adapt to the culture. You're going to have to adapt your habits. You're going to have to stay away from family. You're going to have to learn a new language, which is not, if you think it's easy, it's because you haven't started studying. Okay? And so there'll be a bunch of challenges that you have to face. You have to see a lot of your friends from your country just they basically get away from you, or they will forget you, or they will sometimes you will realize some things about them that especially when you tell them that you are going or you are there, that they're not going to be happy for you. They are not, you can tell that they're not happy. You can tell that they're jealous, or they're just angry that you are leaving them. That the same thing is going to happen to family. The same thing is going to happen to a lot of friends. So you will have to reinvent yourself in a way that a lot of people, I don't know if they want to do it, because it is a very long and a very painful process. It's more difficult. People, you just learn a new language. No, it's a new language, it's a new culture, there are new habits, new television, new sport.
It's a new self.
New way of thinking.
And they have different values. Okay, they have different values about a lot of things, and we had to adapt our way of thinking in like things that in Canada, since that talking frankly here, things like in Canada, like the legalization of cannabis, right, is a thing that a lot of people, they don't even talk about it today. Is a taboo. Like in Brazil, is a taboo. The access to weapons, for example, is another thing. It's not like in the United States, everybody that I knew that had a gun. But in Canada, it's perfectly possible. So there are those things that I see people arguing about in the Facebook forums that they start. I agree with this, I don't agree with that. And when we come here, we have to understand one thing. We are visitors. The people who were here before us, they built this country on their values. And it works. So I think what we need to do is to swallow a humble pill and just adapt and keep our stupid opinions, like I had, they still have probably, to ourselves until we actually understand the complexities of the Canadian society. So, and we needed to adapt, and we needed to be humble. That I don't know why they do this, so it's going to take probably years until we actually realize why they do some things, why they don't do some things, why the Canadian government does this, why they do that, why people do this, why they behave like that, why they educate children like that, why they don't. So everything is different, and I think probably like we have to be humble.
Yeah, because it's not our place to judge. Yeah, we wanted to be here. We came here.
Yeah, but this is a very long process that I think I was very angry for a long time. People who met me in the United States, I went to the phase of denial, the phase of anger, I think, against the culture where I was. And I see this happening to most Brazilians, because we do follow a lot of groups here. People, they tend to become resentful. Yeah, they get resentful. They start to overly criticize the Canadian health system, for example. In Brazil, it's like that. But they are comparing one of the best private medical systems in the world, that is in Brazil, that's true, with a public system here in Canada. And the public system here has excellent, let's say, basic care. And there are reasons for that. Okay, this is statistically, this is the best way to increase life expectancies, to provide the highest number of people the basic health care. Okay, which is why the life expectancy in Canada is one of the highest in the world. So there are reasons for that, and we don't understand that. And I think that people, they need it before becoming, let's say, resentful, and they will, because as soon as you get here, it's difficult to make friends. It's not that it's difficult to make friends in Canada, it's difficult to make friends, period, when you're older. I mean, I don't know how how old you are. How many friends have you made after like 30?
Not that many.
Right? So even if you go to Italy, go back now. You're not going to make 10 friends until Christmas, right? It's not going to happen. And it's the same thing. It's just that the people, they say, I don't make friends because I'm an immigrant, or because I'm Brazilian, or because Canadians are this, they're like this, and they behave like that, they behave like that. And they start to become resentful. I cannot find this food. I cannot find this thing. I cannot find this thing. So basically, get used to it. You are not going to eat. If you want to eat your food, talk your language, meet your friends, see your family every weekend, read in your language, don't come. It's useless. Right? Just stay where you are. I mean, it's pointless.
Yeah, be humble and open-minded. Like to
humble people. Yeah, that's the
yeah. Let's wrap the whole. Let's leave it like that. Like be humble and open-minded when you move to Canada or any other country.
Yeah, I think that that's basically yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, I just wanted to wrap this up. It's almost been like 2 hours. It's usually. But I really enjoyed the episode. If the people wants to get in touch with you, want to know more about the work you guys doing, or want to learn English with you guys, how can people can find you?
They can find us, especially on Instagram, is at IamInCanada altogether .English. They can get in contact with us there. We have a lot of posts. Yeah, we usually post mostly for Brazilians, because most of our students are Brazilians, but everybody's welcome because we speak English in the classes, but maybe they will see that like 80% of the posts are in Portuguese, but if they want to connect with us, feel free. Actually, we welcome you. And we want to thank you for this opportunity. It was really nice. We really like your work. Your podcasts are very special and very different, especially because you bring some truths, and especially some hard truth sometimes. Because people, as Arnaldo said, they imagine what living in Canada will be like. But the real life is always different. Either for the better or for worse, as Arnaldo said too. So it's nice because as you bring stories of real immigrants, people can have different points of view, different opinions, because everybody has a different story, and everybody has been through a different process. So my process of adaptation is never going to be like your process of adaptation. And I think this is a very nice idea. It's a very good service you're providing.
Oh, thank you very much for the kind words. Thank you. Yeah, because as you mentioned, like everybody is different. And also, like, even though we're going through all these challenges, like you guys just explained all the challenges you guys go through and how hard it is to move to a new country, learn the language. But that's why I ask you the same question to every guest. Do you have any regrets about leaving your country? And usually, always the question is no. Like, because even though you're going through all these challenges, all these obstacles, all of this, still, like, there's no regrets, but there's still like the grass is greener on the other side, even if it's like really hard to get over the fence and there's going to be some traps on the other side before you actually enjoy the grass, but still, like, it's always worth it. And I just want to show people that, yes, it's not gonna be easy. It's going to be challenging. It's going to be this, but it's totally worth it for most people. It's totally worth it. So thank you guys for sharing your story. I really appreciate it.
Nice to be here.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.